Welcome, traveler. You have entered a realm of adventure. Prepare yourself for tales from beyond the dice.
Beyond the Dice is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition actual play podcast. Though we're not playing a typical fantasy setting, we've decided to go for something a little bit different. Our setting will take place in a fantasy-like world, though it won't be in times past where dragons rule over the earth and armies fight against hordes of barbarians. Firstly, the setting is called New Ettica, and will have all the conventions that we love in a D&D game. It'll have elves and dwarves, goblins and orcs, and all the things that makes D&D, D&D. We just wanted to do things a little differently. Now, this campaign is a custom setting that has been created by me and workshopped with the players. Now, our game's genre is Cyberpunk. Some of you may be thinking, wait, Cyberpunk? So, sci-fi and fantasy, futuristic technology and magic? How the shitbags does that work? Now, it's sort of how Shadowrun combined both those elements to create their awesome setting. I'll talk about how this magic and technology works together in the setting a little bit later. And D&D do have rules for it, rules that they themselves released. So Wizards of the Coast released an article named My New D20 Modern Campaign, written by the awesome Dan Helmick. And you can find Dan at JabJabSliceJab on Twitter. He's got a few projects and games that he's released. They look pretty awesome. Now, the first article they released was followed by a second, which included an unearthed arcana with some awesome content that exploded my brain apart by showing us how Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition could take place in a modern setting, with technology and magic hand in hand. Now, it got my mind working, and I ran a holiday episode around Christmas for my regular D&D group. Every year, I take whatever characters they're currently playing and throw them into a strange holiday or Christmas themed world and storyline. Last Christmas, I transported them far into the future, and this is where I tested my cyberpunk theme and genre. Our ranger became a sniper, using a rifle in place of his bow. Our wizard was filled with cybernetics, which allowed him to use magic, and the other players took on modern takes for their class and race as well. Now, my players really enjoyed the night, not just because it was filled with silly and fun heavy metal Christmas carols as background music, or bad guys named Klaus Kane and his wife Candy Kane, who were the heads of Northern Polar Incorporated. They liked it because it was different, and they could do crazy action sci-fi stuff that they've seen on TV and movies since they've been alive watching TV and movies. When we decided on doing a D&D podcast, we spoke about the different settings and genres that we could create and play in, though we quickly decided on the 80s inspired cyberpunk world. Now, I don't want to get into full detail about the universe of New Ettica, though I do want to share a small narrative that I created for some fun when I was planning the campaign and testing my mics. After the narrative, I'll talk about some basic lore and conventions that we decided on when we were world building, and it should give you an idea of what we're going for. This next section, this narrative, should hopefully give you an idea of what it might be like to live in New Ettica. I hope you enjoy. From the platform, you can see most of the sprawling city that you call home. You can see the Etherios Tower. That tall black spire has always amazed you. The other buildings surrounding it are indeed massive structures, though they look like far younger siblings while standing next to this imposing giant of a tower. You look down its length, at the walkways and the platforms connecting the various towers and buildings to one another. People are going about their business, walking to work, or like you, on their way home. The sun setting behind the massive tower is a sight which never gets old. As the light of the fiery orb casts its last fleeting rays from behind the city walls, you see the twin moons slowly rise. The neon lights of New Ettica flicker on in what seems like unison. You can hear an NEPD patrol speeder chasing some rich kid who has taken it upon themselves to break some law. They will probably pay off the officer, and the officer is probably hoping that they will. A thick humming sound comes from behind you. The Skytrans hover rail slides into the station. The train's sleek body, a glossy, pure white shell, seemingly having no windows, stops moving. The doors slide open as the commuters step on board and take a seat. You find a seat on the second level. You peer out of the window, which has worked flawlessly into the grey steel structure. The train moves off without a struggle, and it cuts through the air with grace. An advert from Skytrans slides into your augmented reality view, sharing their hopes to upgrade the underrail. Soon, the station is left behind. You peer out of the glass and you can see the ellipse from here. It's perfectly designed towers where some are wealthy enough to own entire floors. You can see some large balconies which could only be for entertaining guests. There are speeder landing ports housing some of the most expensive hovercars you have ever seen. Beyond that ring of finery and power is the only place you have never laid eyes on. People say it is paradise. Arcadia, the home of the most wealthy in the city. One evening, on the hover rail home, you heard a man talking on his communicator about his brother and how he was given a chance to go fix a generator on a property within Arcadia. The man spoke about how Francis, his brother, was driven through rolling plains where he saw some forests and a lake with sailing ships resting on the water. The speeder carried him to some huge gates which swung open on servos. Behind the walls was a temperate forest.
He saw trees, real trees, not dead husks like out in the wastelands, but trees with leaves and ferns and vines,
the man said. The speeder made its way up to the mansion. It sat there, 3 stories high. He spoke of his brother's amazement that the generator was linked to the pool.
It was about 100 meters by 100 meters, but it looked natural, like some sort of grove,
he said. He spoke about his brother taking his time as to look out over the back of the pool where a waterfall cascaded down into a river which ran for as far as the eye could see. The hover rail slows and stops at your station. You exit. A few other people step off with you. You feel safe on the platform, but the street below, that's another story. The Ultradyne security force is out in numbers at the station. Any lawbreakers are dealt with in a swift manner. You descend the stairs to the lobby, through the front doors and out of the sterile white lights, into the dark, dank streets, lit only by neon lights. You look over your shoulder at the Pathstow Hill hover rail station where the private security officers patrol. You felt safer there. Ahead of you are 100 dark streets, and the lighting may be bright and colourful, but there is nothing fun about what might await you in the dark recesses of those alleyways. You shake your head, hoping to free your mind of those negative thoughts. Walking down Cross Avenue, towards your apartment complex, you pass by a multitude of sights and sounds which are aimed to draw your attention to whatever they are selling. A shop window sign for a tavern named the Siren's Tankard flashes some large text saying 4 to 6 p.m, happy hour. A building with blacked out tall windows and 3 muscled bouncers guarding the entrance. The windows show neon outlines of masculine and feminine forms dancing. Large cursive text scrolls across your vision. saying, "We have what you need to feel good." A bus stops across the road from you. The side of the bus shows an image of an orange motorbike speeding down the streets. Red tail lights trailing after it. Text slowly fades over the video. The new TN55C, a road bike for racers. The next time you are paid, you'll have to purchase a higher tier of ad screen for your augmented reality view. You are stopped suddenly as an NEPD car speeds through an intersection. Its siren echoes as it goes past. You look down the street towards the shortcut to your apartment, but yet again you have to walk the long way, unless you want to get mugged this evening. The same gang is on the stoop right near your apartment, mulling around beneath a huge advertising sign. The changing pictures on the screen cast the gang members in various colours. The group of goblins, half-orcs, and the few humans are calling out to passers-by on the opposite side of the street. You could cross over, but they'll surely stop you again. You are still in your uniform, and last week they stopped you to rid you of all of your chips.
Hey you, what is someone working for a big corp doing down here in Darkhaven? Come to give us a few chips, have ya? I bet you got plenty to share.
Standing there in the intersection, you remember the knife that he flicked out of his pockets and the threats that he made while he took your chips. It's best that you go around. You look over your shoulder at the street thugs. You see them shouting at someone. Then suddenly there is a string of cracks piercing the air. Gunfire! Your instincts kick in. You drop to the ground. It is like time itself is slow. One of the thugs drops to the cement ground, blood streaming from his mouth. You see the other gang members pulling weapons from their waistbands, pointing them across the street. Then, you see thin amber lights streak from out of your vision, passing through the thugs. Blood spills out of them in arcs as you see one of the thugs spin on his heels as he falls, his finger still pulling the trigger. The muzzle flashes aim your way and you feel sharp jolts running up your arm. As you fall, you look down to your arm and you can see right through to the scene before you. You've been shot. You've been shot in your arm. The plastic is melted and cracked around the wound, and the metals within are burnt and broken. Luckily, you took out the augment insurance. You look down to check yourself for any other wounds. There is blood welling on your chest, turning your light grey uniform a dark, dark red. Touching it with your working hand, your human hand, blood sits on your fingertips. Then, the pain comes, fiercely burning a hole in you. Looking up to the scene before you, a figure throws his rifle to the ground as he moves towards you. Have they come to finish you off? Why? The figure's hands glow a soft blue as they make symbols of energy in the air. The figure crouches next to you. The glowing hands come closer. It has to be arcane energy. The hands press down on the bullet wound, and a cold but soothing pain waves through you. Your vision begins to fade. Darkness grows from the corners of your eyes.
You aren't going to die. I promise you that. My healing will stabilize you. Yes, a bystander has been shot. An innocent civilian. Send an ambulance immediately.
Now some lore and some explanation of the city and setting of New Ettica. In ages past, wizards, scholars, and the like would spend lifetimes learning the secrets of magic from books, runes, scrolls, and relics. Magic was the ancient and powerful force left behind by an even older generation of races. There were beings of magical origin who existed with a living arcane energy within them, but that was the past. Now, in the impossibly distant future, something has changed how magic is used. Magic is no longer seen as an ancient power that is to be learned and respected. It is seen as an energy that is to be controlled. Magic, or as many call it, arcane energy, can be harnessed and controlled using technology. This technology can tap into the magical energy and bend it to the user's will. The only problem is, most of the arcane energies need a biological component to tap into said magic. This means if people want to use magic without spending a lifetime learning spells as wizards once did, they must include that technology within them in order to focus magical power. Augments and cybernetics were born to take the place of ancient texts. People had to be able to use magic, and they needed the easiest and quickest path to do so. Those who want to use arcane energy must meet the requirements. First, to understand magic and the code of the arcane. They must have money to purchase the technology, and their biology must accept the technology. Sometimes, when people try to integrate the cybernetics and augments in their bodies, is rejected, and they rarely recover from the surgery. Now, a lot has changed since ancient times, and I don't want to go into full detail about what changed the world, but I will tell you it was a great calamity which broke the world of Etten. Etten is the planet in which the great megacity of New Ettica resides. The lands of Etten were once fertile. They were rolling green hills, snow-capped mountains, lush jungles, and thick with forests. Oceans stretched out as far as the eye could see, separating the land masses. Dragons flew in the skies. Some were friends of good folk, others were tyrannical rulers who destroyed all who opposed them. Now, the lands of Etten are mostly desolate wastelands, though amongst those dark, barren lands there are some sanctuaries, safe places. There are the giant walled cities. New Ettica is one of those cities. It has massive impenetrable walls surrounding it, giant towering skyscrapers, glossy pyramid-like buildings, overpasses, and multi-tiered platforms that run between buildings. The super rich fly their hovercars through the air within the city as they go about their plushy lives. And those who do not have wealth live in the slum-like district named Darkhaven, which runs along the entire length of the wall. This is where our adventurers begin.
There you are, traveler. I'm Crux, the interdimensional demon bard. And I know you probably wanted to hear some Dungeons & Dragons actual play. But that dungeon master wanted to share some things before the campaign begins. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another tale, so be prepared to meet your players. Or your doom, whichever one comes first.
Head on over to our website, www.beyondthedice.com. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/btdpod. This is where we'll be posting any news or new videos or any news. We also like to take some photos of RPG and Dungeons & Dragons related things. So go have a look at our Instagram at Beyond the Dice.